There is an irrational belief that the NAACP works to only support the civil rights of Black Americans, and some go as far to say that the NAACP is racist and no longer needed, but that is simply untrue. The mission of the NAACP, which stands for National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is to fight for injustice amongst all races and for civil and social justice. An example of the NAACP currently fighting for civil and social justice rights is appealing the Voting Act of 1965. And the Voting Act of 1965 protects minorities from being discriminated based on their race and protects them so that they have the right to vote. And it also prevents practices such as not having bathrooms available or voting in certain districts, and it also protects against voter suppression. But in 2013, according to the Washington Post, an article written by Stephen Dinan, the Supreme Court decided that the key parts of the Voting Rights Act were no longer relevant to today's society. They ruled that discrimination looks different than what it did 40 years ago. And by that they mean, in a piece of the Voting Rights Act from 1965, it ruled that Southern states must undergo major scrutiny before changing their voting rights laws, their state laws. If you think about it, back then, Southern states used racial practices. Either they were killing blacks or some sort of way stopping blacks or other minorities from voting. And this is one way that the NAACP is important, because trying to change this law, it stops accountability for Southern states, or other states for that matter, who may be practicing illegal voting laws. And my second point that I want to make, how the NAACP is not a racist organization, is the fact that it's not a separatist organization. The NAACP has always been inclusive of all races. They fight for broad civil rights causes, unlike a separatist group. For instance, as you can see in this article talks about how they're working on economic development in Florida in 2013. And this article is also coming out of their Crisis magazine, which discusses all the current things that the NAACP is doing for society. And recently, the NAACP has also been focusing on their I Matter campaign, which is a t-shirt that I'm wearing, that focuses on gun violence, police brutality for all races. That's why it's called hashtag I Matter instead of hashtag Black Lives Matter, which is completely different from our national campaign. But getting back to the separatist piece, according to Southern poverty law, a good example of a separatist group would be the new Black Panther Party. They encourage and insinuate violence against whites, Jews, and law enforcement officers, and engage in armed protests. Now, to me and to the world, the NAACP has demonstrated that they are not a separatist group, because they do not insinuate violence against white, Jews, or law enforcement officers, and they've proven in the past that they have used peaceful protest. If you think about it, you can think about the Montgomery bus boycott with Rosa Parks. They organized that around her. You can also think of what they're doing now with the Voting Rights Act, protecting pretty much minorities and everyone in their interest. And you can also just think of when they had the Mike Brown shootings. It was peaceful demonstrations from our standpoint. No one got hurt, at least who was marching with NAACP. Or you can also think locally of what we do here in Aurora. We've marched with the Denver branch downtown to protest shootings in a peaceful, demonstrative way. And one thing I would suggest for someone who thinks that the NAACP is racist is to simply pop in a meeting. See what we're currently doing. We have a branch in Aurora. I am currently the youth president of the Aurora NAACP Youth Council, so that's one way you could do that. And you should also do your research and know the difference between a separatist group like the Black Panther Party, who again uses violence against whites, Jews, and insinuates violence and has and conducts armed protests, whereas the NAACP simply holds community meetings, uses peaceful protests to demonstrate a stance, and again, even at local meetings, invites law enforcement or anyone else of all creeds, races, sexuality to come to our meetings. My name is Kristen Pugh. I am a member of the NAACP Aurora Council, and I also am the youth president of our NAACP Youth Council, and I have been a member of the NAACP for 4 years. Thank you.